Well, hey, everybody, welcome to the Seeing Ability podcast. Wouldn't it be great if every time we met a new person, we just saw their abilities, their potential, and their possibilities instead of their limits? That's the origin behind this podcast. Seeing ability means if you take that word, disability, and you take off the first three letters, what are you left with? Ability. And we're having a conversation with people who are around or are the people with differences. That means sometimes we're going to be talking to adults who grew up with a disability, parents who are raising kids with differences, and a lot of people that support this community. It could be folks in healthcare, people in education, and people working in a lot of different nonprofits that are around supporting and empowering the community. First of all, I know your time is limited and you have a lot of choices when it comes to listening. So thanks for tuning in to our podcast. I think you're going to enjoy my guests today, Chris and Kelsey. First of all, welcome to the podcast.
Thank
Hey,
you.
thanks for having us.
So grateful to be here.
Glad to have you guys. Now, we start off our show talking about just getting to know you a little bit before we get into our subject matter. We call it the Fast Four. It's brought to us by my good friends at Reliable Tech Help. So for your tech needs, reach out to them. They're at 502-797-7399. First question, I'll go with ladies first. Favorite food?
Oh my gosh, pasta all the way. Any type of pasta.
Okay, Chris?
Steak.
Steak.
I want the steak.
Okay, pasta
I want the
steak,
carbs.
good combo. What about, we'll stay with you, Chris. What about favorite music? If we looked at your playlist, what would we find on it?
Oh, honestly, like I love just guitar, like just guitar, open room, concert, like small indie style. I love Glenn Hansard. He's awesome. So anything in that
Okay.
style.
And Kelsey, how about you?
Yeah, you know what? If you looked at my playlist, let me just say first of all, if you looked at my Spotify, it would say like Kid Bop and stuff. Like my kids just take over my Spotify, so you should never look at my Spotify to go off of what my choice of playlist is. But if I could have my own playlist on my own Spotify, it would be like Keen or like that's kind of old school, but I love it. And right now, Ben Rector, we are big fans of Ben
Oh, yeah,
Rector.
he's great.
I just love the indie kind of similar to what he said with
Coffee
guitar,
house
but coffee house
style, like,
jams.
yeah.
Yeah.
So one day you'll get that playlist back.
Yes, that's right.
Yeah.
But it's kind of fun to have that playlist
It
interrupted
is.
by the right people. Okay,
Exactly.
what about next? I always ask guests, it could be a TV show, like a streaming guilty pleasure, a movie you've seen, maybe a play that would be appropriate for you guys, or just something, a book you've read.
There's a couple we're watching right now. One is we're really into Severance.
Yeah.
The show Severance.
Although you can't watch
Mhm.
it late at night or you just fall
Yeah,
asleep
it
and
is
then you're
hard.
lost.
You have to, it's one you have to focus with, like sort of like
So
Lost
hard.
was. Remember
Yeah.
Lost?
Oh,
Yeah,
It's like a
yeah.
Lost.
good though.
Yeah.
I
And
think
then we were
Severance.
watching a show called it's Harrison Ford's new one on Apple. I think it's called
Oh, Shrinking.
Shrinking.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
that was great too.
That was
Okay, there you go. Two good ones. All right,
Yeah.
last but not least, if what is a destination bucket list place that you've yet to go, but you'd love to?
I think ours will be different.
Ireland. I'd love to go to Dublin or just anywhere in Ireland.
I'm trying to
Okay,
make that work. That was supposed to be for his birthday this year, so we still have that on the list.
Yep.
okay.
And for me, I'm a beach girl all the way. I've always wanted to go to not Fiji because I've been to Fiji. What is it called?
Bora Bora.
Bora Bora. I've always wanted to go to Bora Bora. Yep.
Okay, well, it won't happen until we put it out in the universe. So there you go. We've
That's
said
fair.
it, we've
That's
spoken
right.
into reality. It's the first step to getting there, right?
Exactly.
Well, it's awesome to have you guys. Now, some people are probably, I didn't do a much setup to tell the backstory of who you are with Oddity Improv. So tell us a little bit so listeners can kind of get a context of you guys, what you're doing with your nonprofit, how it started, maybe a little bit of your backstory.
I'll let you take
Yeah.
it.
So Kelsey and I did a bunch of improv and sketch comedy in LA. Kelsey trained at UCB, Groundlings, a bunch of different places. I also was big into the Groundlings Theater. That's where Will
Mhm.
Ferrell, Kristen Wiig, and all the Saturday Night Live people started. I was one of the artistic directors there. So Kelsey and I have been heavily into comedy and improv and all that stuff for a while. When we moved out here about almost 3 years ago, we missed it and we went, how do we find the other comedy people?
We noticed it was something that was missing from Williamson County. It's something that Nashville has already. They have some really great partners up
Mhm.
there, and we just don't have much down here in Williamson County. So we thought that it was something we needed to bring here to help the community.
Yeah. And then we created Oddity Improv and we taught adult classes, kid classes, people on the spectrum. We worked with many different nonprofits in that. And It is just initially it was something that we missed and we wanted to do again. And then through doing something that we love, we realized how much other people came on board and how much it impacted the community. And now we're doing shows at Franklin Theater. I mean,
Yeah,
it's
in
just
the second year.
exploded. It's great.
Yeah, so I'll ask you this later, but I'll do it in the beginning too. If folks want to learn more about you, tell us your website.
Yep, it's just oddityimprov.com.
Yep.
It's always nice when a website can be easy, right? That's a good one.
Underscore,
No, not really,
backslash.
no.
No, I'm kidding.
Yeah, the harder the better, right?
Yeah.
So
Exactly.
you mentioned working with folks with differences. Where did that come into the picture? Was that planned? Did that just happen? Tell us how that intersected.
Yeah, back then.
Yeah, you know what? It wasn't planned, and we actually had our own personal journey with our son, who we had discovered had some challenges himself. And so, while going through this at the same time, we had been reached out by a couple organizations. One was Backlight Productions here in Franklin, which is an amazing nonprofit organization that works with adults with challenges, and they do theatrical productions, like full scale. They did one at TPAC with my
They've
friend
been a
Laura
guest on
Osnes.
the
They did.
podcast, so some
Yes,
people will know
so
them. Yeah.
I'm sure your readers know who that is. And
Yeah.
so they invited us to do an improv, a comedy club. And so we did
Mhm.
that this last year, and it was just hugely successful.
And
We're huge fans
it
of
was a
them.
mix of some of the Oddity performers and their players, and
Yeah.
we did improv together, and
Yep.
it's just a lot of fun.
We had weekly rehearsals. It was really, really a wonderful
We
experience.
got a lot of hugs.
Lots of
They
hugs.
they just loved it.
Yeah. And then we had some of our performers in one of the recent productions of Midsummer Night's Dream.
Shakespeare, which
They
was
did
incredible.
Shakespeare. It was just mind-blowing. And then Brightstone, we were able to partner with Brightstone for their recent fundraiser last year with Nate Bargatze. We opened with Nate
Mhm.
Bargatze with some of their students in their program, and that was really fun. So they got their own version of comedy club as well. We've been teaching there, and we just love our partners here. And it's been encouraging for us. These programs are for older people, like actual adults, not kids, but
Yeah.
they do have some kid programming as well. And so for us, sort of at the beginning of our own journey with neurodivergent children and being diagnosed with our own children, it's been a really educational journey and one that we find extra special.
Mm.
Yeah.
So for a lot of parents, that beginning of the journey to having a diagnosis, a label, if you will, can be a little bit of a U-turn or a little bit of a fork in the road for parents. What was that like personally for you guys to think about, a different road than you may have expected if you expected one for your kids?
I think originally we only had each other to go to about it, so our world
We
we
didn't have much
we seemed
community.
kind of alone in
It
it,
was very
right?
Mhm.
isolating for sure.
It wasn't
Yeah.
until the day when we started talking to other parents, which it like released this tension and the weight off our shoulders, going, "Oh, we're not alone in this." And I wish we did that sooner. So anyone listening today, I would just say, get with other people. There's so many people that have kids with disabilities or people on the spectrum, all that stuff. And the more you can put yourself around that community, the more you can see how other parents are handling it. And it should be a community effort rather than you putting all the weight on your shoulders to fix it. Like just you and I, we have
Yeah.
to fix it. No, it's not about fixing it. How can we manage this?
Yeah, and
Yeah.
how can we create the best life situation? It's sort of like not despite, but amongst these challenges, and being grateful too for, I
Theater.
think just continuing to be grateful for the things that we do have in other areas of our health, and thinking of the things we're grateful for really, really helped in the moments where we felt like everything was collapsing or everything felt so different. It can feel, like I said, when you're in the middle of the isolation, once you break free of that and you talk to other people with different types of challenges, it really opens up your world, and you need that expansion of your world a little bit so that you
Yeah.
can bring it all back to what's important. Yeah.
Yeah, I think in isolation, there's probably very few of us that our natural thoughts gravitate to the positive. We're going to go down the worry well. We're going to go down the rabbit hole of all the things that could go wrong. And we might have a 2-year-old, but we're worried about what's going to happen to them when they're 23.
Yeah.
That's a common experience for all parents who learn that their kid has differences. And I think your point about the earlier the better that you connect with other people, you realize you're not alone. you realize it's probably not as bad as you thought it was. And
Right.
it's like you said, it's not something that needs to be fixed. When I was working on the book that I published last year, I was talking to a parent. I'll never forget her quote. She said, my life totally changed the day I stopped trying to fix my kid, and
Mm,
realized that they are who they are. And my goal was, like any parent, to help them have the best life possible, but
that's
not
right.
approaching it from the standpoint that something was wrong or something
Yeah.
was broken. So I
It's
appreciate you
definitely a
guys.
humbling experience for sure.
Yeah, I appreciate you guys sharing that, because that beginning, that sort of acceptance and learning that this is just now part of our life. It's not, a death sentence, if you will, kind of like
Yeah.
heavy thing. That's a big part of the journey for all parents.
Yeah.
So now that you've had the chance to interact in your program with people who come to it at maybe a little bit different than your average performer, what insights has that given you guys? What have you noticed about working with people who come with differences?
First of all, people with differences, they're not afraid to take chances. And we teach in improv and even just being in the entertainment industry, you have to jump out and take chances. If you just sit on the sidelines and wait for an opportunity to come to you, it won't. You have to jump out. And so when we're doing improv and, we say like, okay, shout out a fake, serial name or whatever, just to get people out of their comfort zone, just shout things out. It's the adult actors that we work with in our normal program where they're timid, they're shy, they're all this stuff. And then we work with people with differences, they'll shout on anything. They'll just go for
Mm,
it. And when our oddity performers have worked with them, they're like, "Man, I wish I had that." They don't care what people think of them. They're not putting on this facade. They're just being themselves. And
right.
that is the goal we strive for with our performers of you see how they just own who they are and they're not trying to change or fix anything. They're just being themselves. That's what we need to strive for.
And I think that's something we learned with our son too, is that, he doesn't know any difference. He doesn't know he is different than anybody else. And he is just so proud of who he is. He loves to dress himself. And sometimes the combos he'll come up with are so to anyone else's eye, you're like, whoa, that's a little bit out there, but
Style.
and he is so confident in who he is and how he comes out as who
It's
he
awesome.
is. It's so awesome. And he teaches us such amazing lessons. But I think I mentioned to you earlier, Jim, that like there's actually a lot of differences that bring us together. Or I'm sorry, similarities. There's also a lot of similarities that bring us together.
Yeah,
We,
I want to get to that in just a second.
yeah. Oh,
I want
sure.
to, but your point about the idea that one of the things you strive for is people to just be in that moment and not really care what people
Yeah.
think, not be so
Yeah.
self-conscious.
Yeah.
That's got to be so empowering. And so what I hear you saying, Chris, is like you're almost saying to your other performers, typically abled, if you will, be more like them. Like in that
100%.
aspect, which
Well, and
is
that's
which
why
is
we
yeah,
try to teach improv early on to kids because we're get them used to a stage, get them used to
right,
just going for it. The earlier you learn that, a lot of people get into theater right when they're young and they're like, "Oh, but I'm not going to be an actor." And for parents listening, it's not about taking the actor path. It's about being comfortable with yourself. Can you stand still center stage and not feel awkward? Right? If
right.
you do feel awkward, that means that's something you need to work on. You don't like just being yourself standing center stage. If you ever get a chance, go center stage somewhere and you'll feel this strange pressure. And that's where we want to live in that pressure to break free from that pressure. So,
Yeah. So in a way, it's kind of like a superpower that sometimes people with differences have, is that lack
oh,
of lack of inhibitions, right?
they're our
Yeah.
role model. I mean, truly
Yeah.
for improv,
They're
100%.
very
Comedy.
inspiring.
Oh, yeah.
Very inspiring.
Okay, I want to come back to the similarities, but quick. First, we're going to take just a short break. When you have a kid who is different, all your ducks need to be in a row, especially your money. Cam Howe with Primerica knows the joys and challenges as he and his wife raise their medically fragile son, Brooks. Cam brings over 13 years of experience to help his clients be protected, have a plan for the future, reduce debt, and connect to resources. Get your financial house in order so that you can enjoy every moment with your child. Reach out today at 502 803 5075. Now, Kelsey, you talked about we talked about the differences and how that kind of is empowering, but you also noticed a lot of similarities. So tell us more about that.
Yeah, one of the things I love about improv is that you come as you are And improv levels the playing field. We talk about this a lot when we go in for corporate team trainings. We'll go in with hundreds of team members from some big corporation. And what's great about it, and part of our pitch is, hey, your big boss man, he comes down and he's at the same level as you when it comes
Yeah.
to this exercise. And when we get together for improv, we are all on the same level. And so it's just great. It's all very neutral. We all come together and we're all vulnerable, and it takes this
Hmm.
special vulnerability to step out center stage, and that creates a neutrality amongst all players. And I love that.
Yeah. And you mentioned some of the same challenges, being nervous, things like that.
Yeah,
You find that
absolutely.
that's kind of a bond, that it doesn't matter whether you're a quote typically able person or one with differences.
Yeah.
Correct. Yeah, we all get nervous to step out of our comfort zone, and that vulnerability. It takes bravery for anyone to be vulnerable.
Well, and we always
Yeah.
tell our performers too, like when you're nervous, it means that you care. So
Mm.
nerves are great. Then thank you. That means you actually care to do well. You're trying to do well. It's when you're not
Yeah.
nervous, like, I'm not nervous. You're like, uh-oh.
Uh-oh.
Oh no, you're cocky. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So yeah, nerves are fun.
I always love, can either of you think of a story, whether you use the person's name or just an example, that kind of gives us a picture of some of your performers you've worked with and some of the things you've noticed, either the similarities they had or how they approach things differently, and that was refreshing to you? Can you think of an example?
I mean,
Yeah.
Nick, we
I
just,
know
yeah,
Nick came to
right?
my mind too. Yeah. So there was a player, we'll call him Nick, who he just came every day with this excitement. He just fueled all of us because in comedy club, he loved to tell jokes,
Yeah.
right? And
And
so,
they and they
yeah,
and they were hilarious. And in between breaks, he would just tell a joke. And he being in a room with him, you weren't able to be sad. You weren't able to be, oh, I'm tired. We're having a long day. He came in with, we're doing something amazing, and I'm so happy to be a part of it, which it just was intoxicating. Everyone in the room would light up. And it was
Mhm.
him just loving to make people laugh. And I'm just like, I want to live my life like that. Like my goal is to make people laugh and smile. And that's what's his goal. He said, I love to make people laugh and smile. We're like,
yeah.
what a
And
great motto.
we had so many also. There's different parts of improv, right? There are parts where it's so great for different people because we can use different parts of improv to communicate. It doesn't have to be all verbal because we do have some
Mm.
friends who are nonverbal.
Hmm.
And so we when we
Yeah, we
teach
would.
space work, which is in improv, the space between your hands and an object. So if I'm holding a ball, I'm holding it like this. I'm not holding it like this because there's space
Hmm.
there. And so when we teach these concepts, we see friends who are maybe nonverbal able to participate and do an entire scene without speaking a word.
Yeah.
And it's a whole nother part of the creative brain that they excel at, and some of us don't excel at. And so we're all able to use different strengths within our own abilities to move a scene forward and to be funny and
We
silly.
we worked with someone that had a major stutter. They would freeze up and not be able to speak. But when we did musical improv, where they would sing and
Yep.
speak anything,
So talented. And
they never stuttered.
oh
It
my
was it was
goodness,
Wow.
just
it's
like this other
beautiful.
thing, and we found that we're like, that's what you should do. This is going to be. It was incredible to see. Some people
You're
just feel
able to
like dance.
highlight
Yeah,
everyone's strengths in a
yeah,
different way, and it's so beautiful because then it all comes together in this amazing showcase.
yeah.
It's great.
Yeah, I love that. When we were getting ready for today, Chris, you were telling me about a performer that had Tourette's, and how that
Mm,
Yeah.
was almost an asset in a way. It could be used as one.
Yeah. So we in improv, you rely on your scene partner. You want to make your scene partner shine. So whatever they say, I'm going to react to it. I'm going to say yes, and I'm going to agree with it. If Kelsey's like, it's a hot day, I'm going to be like, yes, it is. It's 98 degrees. I'm using them. They're my scene partner to help. A girl had Tourette's, and she always tried to hide it. She didn't. It wasn't verbal Tourette's. It was just physical things would happen. Tics, movement,
sudden movements.
and she always tried to hide it. And
Mm.
actually, she was in our uh,
A
a
corporate
class that
group.
I did that wasn't a class for people with differences. So she kept apologizing. I'm sorry, this happens. Let me try to hide
We
it. And
do love to integrate anyone into the
yeah,
class.
and I
Hmm.
told her, I said, let's use it. think of it like a scene partner. If your arm flies in the air in a scene, the audience has seen it. Don't try to hide it. That's a gift now. Now you get to go, oh, there's so many flies in here. Now, you
Mhm.
never would have thought of that if it wasn't for your body reacting.
Yeah.
So you get your superpower is you get an extra scene partner in the scene that gives you
And
ideas.
that's a normal thing where we have to justify things that happen randomly without
Yeah.
explanation within an improv scene. Whatever somebody says, does, hears, whatever, we have to then justify. There are whole games that we build around justifying some random thing that happens within a scene, like a sound or something like that. And so that makes complete sense. And it's
Yeah.
something that you can use as a gift in improv.
Her arms did this once, and then she immediately went, "Howdy, partner,"
It became her
because she went,
character.
"Oh, I'm a cowboy." It was just, and she goes, and she's emailed me, and we've talked for years now, and she's like, hearing that made me go, I don't have to hide who I am.
So
I get
cool.
to use this,
Yeah.
Yeah.
and it's I have an advantage over other people now, which is incredible.
Yeah.
So
And what a gift. What
it's
a
a
gift,
gift.
because I think so many people who have differences everywhere they go, it's pointed out, whether they feel it or others, how
Mhm.
different they are.
Absolutely.
And for the right people, your program has to be incredibly freeing
Yeah.
because they totally have a space to just be themselves, and all their differences are totally embraced as opportunities.
Yes,
Absolutely.
100%.
Yep.
That's pretty cool. So a lot of our listeners are parents that are raising kids. Some of them have teenagers, some of them have young kids, and they're kind of, like you guys, getting to that village and getting all this input to say, how can I help my kid be as successful as possible? Not just to be a successful adult, because if you're so focused on that, you forget the path along the way, right? Be a successful young person along the way towards an independent, successful adult. What advice would you have for parents with the observations you've had, especially when it comes to like fostering their kids' creativity and the kind of work that you guys do?
I do want to say, especially for parents out there, but I think the moms too, especially that feel like we're balancing so many programs between school or homeschool. What decisions do we make? We're bringing that to our partners and saying, what do you think? Here's our options, classes. You have to just be your kid's number one advocate in all situations.
Mm,
And I think that sounds obvious, but at the same time, I think when you're in the middle of it, you almost, I know maybe for me, I just felt like I was always apologizing instead of
mm,
saying like, how can I help my son integrate into this program? How can we make this work? Because I know he'll thrive here. I know he'll love these people, this program, whatever this activity is. And maybe they don't have something built around it to help them. Maybe they don't have the resources. A lot of programs here are smaller. I know our homeschool program has been amazing because they don't have the resources. They're a new homeschool program and they don't really have any type of special needs program. They don't, but he needs one. And so they were willing to help us. And it's worth the sit downs. I think sometimes I think us as parents, I can relate to just being tired of explaining your child's situation over and over
mm,
and over. And for us, an invisible disability that's part of what we're dealing with. And so to most
mm.
people, our kid looks totally fine. He looks completely normal.
Right.
And he's not. And so I think being questioned, being looked kind of like, are you sure? Like being, as a parent, that can get exhausting. It
Yeah,
can get really
it
tiring.
adds up. It adds up. But Kelsey, when you talked to our homeschool program, we tried a full day for him to go and it didn't work out. So we said, well, can we try a half day? I know that's not how it works there, and they agreed to. So don't just
Mm,
give up on that first
Keep
moment where something
going.
goes wrong. Work with
Keep
it
advocating as
because,
exhausting as it can be.
and we've pushed through. We've had some days where he's at homeschool, our in-person homeschool for an hour, or let's say a theater thing, right? For an hour, we pick him up, but he's not missing out on that. So we push to make that
Yeah.
happen, and we've seen him grow so much. Even if he's there for 30 minutes, he tried
Yeah.
theater for a while. He couldn't do a full day, so we put him in for a little bit.
Yeah. easing in them
It's
into
worth it.
programs is really great. And I think that
Mhm.
oftentimes we see programs we want to sign our kids up for, and we go, I don't think they're going to be able to handle that. And so we're just not going to even communicate. Like we'll
Right.
just not even apply, or we'll not even, we'll just not sign up for
Mm,
that at all.
Which I get it. You're
And
burnt out. You've heard no's maybe, or
yeah.
we don't have the staff for that. But
Yeah, and two things. I think one, there are more people willing to help you than you think there are,
right.
or able to bend the rules or find resources, and you'll be pleasantly surprised, I hope. I know we have been.
yeah.
And two, I think that really leaning into your child's strengths really helps with that, where they thrive. You know, we've bounced from guitar lessons to basketball to theater, all these things that, you know, he loves for a time. And I think just really being watchful and listening to what your child is saying they are really excited about, because that's half the battle, is getting them to just get excited about something so that they'll stick to it, you know? But yeah, being your child's advocate, it's about that listening, really hearing them, and then going out and really fighting for them to be a part of something.
I love that. Yeah, I don't think that statement and the way you articulated it can be said enough about being your child's advocate. Let me ask you this: when parents are looking at things for their kids, sports, regular sports, adaptive sports, maybe the first thing that comes into their mind is not comedy, improv,
Yeah.
I know.
theater.
I know.
But talk to us about how that could be a space for kids, and what advice would you give for parents of like helping their kids explore that side of, let's call it extracurricular activities.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, improv and theater, it is team. It is teamwork. It is team building. It's very similar to a sport.
Hmm.
I mean, you see a dancer in a musical theater show, they're working hard, right? If you're wanting
Hmm.
that exercise, all that stuff, it's there. Um, I personally will always push for improv first because you don't have to memorize lines. There's no
Mm.
pressure. You show up and we'll get in a circle, we'll do games, group games.
At
Well,
what age, I would say, could you tell the parents at what age do you feel like
yeah.
they kind of progress into really understanding what true improv is?
It's a little tricky if they're under 8.
Hmm.
I
Just
taught a class last night for kids that were 11 to 14, and that was
Mhm.
a real sweet spot for kids.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's hard under age 11. Even our daughter is 10, she's about to turn 11, and our son is 8. And I think it's our daughter really gets it and likes it. She's 10, but our son, he's not quite ready for it.
Well, it's just it's
Right.
hard when you let a very young kid go, say anything, do
Yeah, you're
anything. They're
nervous
like,
about
oh,
the
here we
next
go, right?
Yeah.
So, but I have seen some programs where it's more family playtime with a little
Right.
sprinkle in with
or theater
improv or
games,
theater
be a
games.
presence.
But I would say the earliest, again, I do improv, so I'm gonna push for this. But the earliest you can get your kid into anything that's in the arts,
Performance related.
Yeah.
performance related, is so good for them. It's going to help them with public speaking. It's going to help them with feeling confident. It's not just we do games too, where someone will talk about their life for a minute, and they were like, "Do you notice that um, you rock back on your feet? Do you notice that you're looking down when you're talking? Like, we want to see your eyes. Let's practice looking up and talking to your scene partner. Nothing is ever negative, but we're
Hmm.
giving them life lessons. Like the way you talk to
Right.
your scene partner, you should also talk to them like that in real life, right? Eye contact.
I know we really have lost the ability to connect in somebody's eyes, you know, that eye
Right.
Yeah.
contact piece. I think
Yeah.
mainly since COVID especially, but yeah. So, and especially kids, you know, I think the phones technology has really played into a lot of that social media. And so teaching kids at an early age that eye contact connection is super important, and bringing that back, it's an important social
Yeah.
aspect.
And I wish that we partner with other nonprofits to teach that. We don't have our own department for that. So I
Right.
would just say if parents are looking for that, I mean, where could they look?
Yeah, no, I think definitely
Backlight,
reach out. Backlight,
production,
and just
Bright
other, yeah,
Zone.
local
Really,
programs.
yeah.
So I always like to spend a little time talking about the organization. You guys are a nonprofit,
Hmm.
correct?
Hmm.
Yep.
And so do you have a board of directors? Tell us a little bit about your vision, some of your needs, like where are you headed? What are some of your biggest gaps between where you are and
Yeah.
where you want to be right now?
Our biggest thing right now is we've really wanted to have our own theater, and it's so expensive to do that. But we're
Hmm.
limited with teaching classes because it's hard to rent random spaces, and parents are like, wait, where are we this week? Where are we this
We
week?
haven't had a consistent place to teach.
The dream would one
Yeah.
day to have our own space we do clean comedy. We call it smart comedy. Nothing
And
against.
space theater, meaning like, it's like a black box,
Yeah.
not a big, we're performing at the Franklin Theater right now, and that's just a giant
Amazing.
house and bigger than anything we ever expected to perform in. So our idea would be to have a theater that would also double as a classroom and kind of have those multi-use
We want
spaces.
people to have more stage time. So you take a class and then you
Students
get to
and
perform. That is
exactly.
so important to perform. And we can't always do that. If it's a class of 14, we're like, we can't go rent a theater, or we can't, sorry,
No.
it's just too expensive. So one day, hopefully getting a space with some classrooms doing that. Our main vision though is really just comedy is needed more than ever right now. And not mockery comedy, but just comedy, joyful comedy is so needed in the world right now. And like we said about eye contact and all the benefits of comedy.
And
Um,
clean comedy, like you were saying, I think I cut
yeah,
you off.
yeah, clean comedy. We call it. We said it cleanish comedy at one point because it's improv. We're like, it's kind of hard, but clean comedy is smart comedy. If someone wants to say like the F word, we're like, well, wait, hang on. What is your character actually trying to say in this scene? Like, don't go for the easy route. We want to hear more about.
Shock factor,
Yeah,
laugh.
avoiding shock factor, all that
That's
stuff. I
not what
love
we're about.
Seinfeld. The characters are wonderful.
It's clean. Nate Bargatze. That's why we all
Yeah.
love Nate Bargatze.
Yeah,
Um,
exactly.
And it's
so
made we've had people take our classes and go, actually, I'm having to work a little harder to be clever and smart. And I actually like this style. It's
and our style is based on characters. We want to create grounded, believable characters. The audience watches us and goes, "Hey, I know that person. I know somebody just like
Yeah.
that." That's so relatable, and we love that type of, like Chris said, it's like that Seinfeld type of character comedy.
And
Were
how are
were
you
you-
guys funded? Where does your funding come from?
That's a great
that's a
question.
great question.
Um,
I will say, so Kelsey and I started this. It was just her and I.
yeah.
And we just did some classes. We got our board,
Yeah, it's
but
just
we
private
don't.
donations mostly right now.
Yeah.
We fund it through our classes, which we haven't been able to do. We had a couple spaces that fell through. We were supposed to be at the factory, and then we had the space behind the factory, and everything has fallen through in the last
We
year
had
and a
theater
half.
equipment ordered,
It's been a
and
it's
the
been a rocky road. I'll
city had
let
to
you
shut
know
it
that. It's been
down.
a roller coaster ride for sure. But we're kind of just we've got open hands at the moment, and we're just trying to receive whatever comes our way. And that was the Franklin Theater, and that was Brightstone, and a couple of these places like Backlight coming together. We're trying to figure out how we can work together more. We're trying to be more connected to other nonprofits in the community and partner with those people. We are doing a lot of corporate trainings. We're being that helps us a lot when we have
Yeah.
that extra income coming in, because we do have overhead. And so right now I gotta say, like, there's not a lot in the bank. We're just kind of going from project to project at the moment because we're a baby. We're in our second year.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
we're on the growing path.
Well, you'll never get to Bora Bora without putting it out there, and you'll
I
never
know.
get that
Right.
theater. We'll never
Hey,
get that theater
hey.
space
This
if
girl
we
needs
don't
a
put it out there,
vacation.
right?
If any CFOs are listening, we'd love to
That's
chat.
right.
That's
Right.
not
So
our
tell us
strength.
again. Tell us again that website address. So there
Yeah.
might be some people that want to make a donation. They got to know how to do it.
Yeah, it's oddityimprov.com. So that's ODDITY improv, not improve,
Yeah.
improv.
IMPROV.
Yes,
.com.
.com. And there's a video on there of us performing at the Franklin Theater, and there's a vision page, and there's just a lot of ways to
And
get
to donate, we can
connected.
go to oddityimprov.com/donate.
Yeah.
Okay. Very. Ask most of my into let's say a hospital had a little program for parents of kids who are under 10, and they're facing a lot of different diagnoses, but all of them have this non-traditional path. And we brought you in as a speaker, and you were going to give advice on like the 3 or 4 keys to raising successful kids who are kids with differences. You can do it as a team, you can improv it, you can do it individually. What would be your advice? What would be those big keys that you'd recommend?
I think the day you stop trying to fix it, you will be happier. I mean, you're going to do everything you can as a parent, but think about helping them, not fixing them.
Yeah.
And you may be helping them for the rest of your life, but if you put a end date on it, fixing, then you're trying to achieve the end, and you can't enjoy the present. So that's one.
That's right.
That's for me.
Yeah.
I love
That's
that.
right. I like it. And I would say, don't take life too seriously, ever. No matter what you're facing, if we don't take life too seriously and we can find the little moments of joy in every little pocket we can, that it's another way to just be living life in the moment, present, with your family, and to find that happiness that you're searching for, you know?
And I would say too, if you're putting your kid into a new program, whether it's sports or theater, they may say I hate it the first day, right? But kids do that, right? Kids go, I don't like broccoli, and then you put butter on it. They're like, oh, it's good now. So, give it a chance a little bit longer
Yeah.
because if I go off of just what my son says, he may be like, I don't like this. Try it a couple more times. Oh, you actually do like it, right?
Well,
So,
I will say one more thing, and I'm
yeah,
sorry, this is
please.
a fourth
This
point.
is
You
for
said three, but I'm giving you four, is don't wait to ask for help. I think that we've been really bad about asking for help, whether I don't know what
Mm,
it is about feeling shame or well, what my situation is not as bad as this other person's situation.
so I don't want to ask
We
for help. Yeah.
comparison is truly the thief of joy because
yeah,
you will sit in isolation and you'll think about your problem and it's not as bad as this problem, but it's not bad enough. It's like you start to weigh whether or not it's bad. Like, how bad does it get before I ask for help? Don't wait
right.
for that, because if your community doesn't know that you're struggling and that there's any amount of struggle, whether or not don't be the person that measures the struggle. Let your community surround you, whether it's praying for you, donating for you. We had somebody at one really low point reach out and give us gift cards to Trader Joe's because we were having a hard time with all of our medical bills. And
Right.
that was such a gift. It
Yeah.
just ended up in our mailbox one day. And you don't have to go out and start, a GoFundMe. No one's asking you to do that. But let your community love on you however they can. And you will truly feel that it's a weight lifted. And it's just another level of love that you can experience.
Yeah.
I think so many people could relate to what you said because for a lot of parents and maybe moms, but I think for moms and dads, it's hard to admit that you need help, right?
Yeah.
When I was working on the book, another quote that comes to mind is a mom said, I had to take off my superwoman cape long enough to ask for help. And when I did, I was like sitting in my floor and just asked my friend to come over and help me, mop up the floor because I was
Yeah.
just overwhelmed, but I was afraid to admit that I wasn't a perfect mom and that I needed help.
I
So
so
yeah,
relate to
that's
that.
such
Yeah.
good advice.
Yeah.
Well, I'm the time cop, so I always try to keep
Okay.
these episodes brief because our people are busy, but I
Thank
feel like we could talk
you.
for a long time. Thank you guys so much for being here. I think this was great. Again, give us the website one more time.
OddityImprov.com.
We almost
All
said it
right.
together.
I know. I thought we were going to do that.
Now, if I know you're enjoying this, if you loved what their work, please consider a donation. And if you like this episode, we are a best kept secret, the Seeing Ability podcast. So please like the episode, go to our Facebook page, follow us, give us a review of the podcast, and then share it with your friends, especially if you know somebody that you think their kid could really benefit from a program like this. Please share this episode. That's our whole goal. The goal for this podcast is really education. Hopefully, you learned something today. We all need that little burst of inspiration or motivation. And then I think it's basically having this podcast and this conversation be another layer of your community, just a part of your village. So we appreciate you tuning in today. And thank you guys for being here. We'll see everybody next time.
Thank you, Jim.
Thank you.